According to Wikipedia, blackmail is an act of coercion using the threat of revealing or publicizing either substantially true or false information about a person or people unless certain demands are met, and when it came to getting receipts for it, I was a genius. One of my special skill sets was obtaining materials that one could use to threaten all forms of harm and/or criminal prosecution against the victim. If people wanted damaging or compromising information about their family, friends, strangers, and enemies, all they had to do was contact me. It was how I made a living and I loved it. Living in Abuja meant I was never out of a job. The town consisted of people who weren't afraid to play dirty, and that was good for me. I was currently lodged in a 5-star hotel, reading the dossier on my next job. As I skimmed through the pages, my Samsung S20 screen lit up, and it was a message from my partner, AJ. Status report: Otunba is in Suite 7. 1 bodyguard stationed outside. Guest expected by 6 p.m. Will inform you of any change in plans. Smiling, I read the message again. It was 4 p.m., which meant I had 1 more hour to kill before heading to work. Opening the closet, I brought out my work clothes and laid it on the bed. I walked back the table, pulled out a half-smoked blunt, lit it and filled my lungs with fumes of the burning plant material. If this Otunba's job went well, my partner and I would be $13,000 richer. Convert it to Naira, think of your current gross annual income, and tell me if you still love your job. One of the reasons I decided to toe this path was the promise of position, power, and fortune by my mentor, Madam E. No one knew what the E stood for, but it was rumored that it stood for evil, and knowing her, it was probably true. She was a powerful woman that made her money ruining people's lives, and I desperately wanted to be like her. On a good day, she could have breakfast in Berlin, lunch in Paris, and still make it in time for gelato in Italy. All thanks to her Gulfstream G500 parked at the airport. You see, when your parents talked about people with 2 heads, they were definitely referring to her. 2 more puffs and I put out the blunt and exhaled after a while. I immediately felt the calming effect I sought. I was ready to work. Otunba's dossier was already spread on the bed, so I picked it up and went over it 1 more time. Of all the jobs I had done, with the exception of my first job, this one seemed the easiest. I was hired by Otunba's bored housewife to get a picture of him in a compromising position. All I needed to execute this job was a prior knowledge of his whereabouts, and a Nikon Z6 camera, with a resolution of 24.5 MP, and a maximum continuous shooting speed of 12 frames per second. It had cost me about $2,000, but it was a bargain compared to how much I was going to be paid. My iPhone vibrated. Madam E was calling. I picked up immediately and as usual, without pleasantries, she went straight to the point. Today is the Otunba's job? Yes. I have less than 3 hours. Okay. Come by the villa before you go. I want to discuss something important with you. Something was wrong. Madam E has never asked me to come by before a mission. I had a bad feeling about it. Can I come after the job? You know I need a clear head. There was a long pause on the other end, then she spoke up. Okay. Come by after the job. Remember, don't get caught and don't get killed. I won't. Thank you. I put down the phone and went back to light my blunt. Madam E knew better than to call me before a job. Now all I could think of was the important thing she wanted to tell me. I hoped she wasn't dying. I wasn't ready to lose my mentor, and the only mother figure in my life. I closed my eyes and took another drag. I needed to focus on the job at hand. Lack of concentration could get me killed or caught. After the completion of the job, I would stop by the villa. My Samsung S20 vibrated again. Another text message from AJ. Status report, nothing has changed. Otunba still Suite 7. We'll take care of bodyguard as soon as you are ready. I replied, on my way. Keep me informed. As soon as the message delivered, I put out my blunt and headed to the bathroom. I had a shower and dressed up quickly. I put the Otunba dossier in the safe and ordered an Uber. It was time to make a living. In the Uber, I thought how easy it was to track Otunba down. Yes, AJ, my partner, muscle and friend, was good at tracking people, but the main reason he was able to track him easily was because human beings are all creatures of habit. For the past 3 weeks, Otunba's routine remained constant, and hence predictable. Except Thursdays and weekends, he did basically the same thing every day. On Thursdays, he played golf and lodged in the Captain Hotel from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. His wife suspected Thursday was a day set aside for adultery, and she wanted proof to take him to the cleaners. That was why I was hired. The Google Map app on my phone showed we had 10 more minutes to the destination. I sent a message to AJ, telling him to take care of the bodyguard, and confirm the guest had arrived. He sent me a thumbs up icon few minutes later. The coast was clear. I got to the hotel, paid the Uber, and give him a 5-star rating for not talking during the trip. I had lodged in the Captain Hotel 3 times in 3 weeks, and used that opportunity to scout the hotel. AJ had earlier booked Suite 6, so I went to the reception, and collected the key card under the false name he had used. The reception had an envious look in her eyes as she handed it over. I smiled as I collected the key card. If I were in her shoes, chances are I would be jealous too. The elevator took me to the suite wing, and I located Suite 6. I got in, brought the camera out of my bag, and checked to ensure it was working properly. AJ knocked and I let him in. He handed over another key card to me and collected the camera. This is the master key card. I paid a lot of money for it. Smiling, I said we are going to make so much more. Once you open the door, take 5 shots and exit immediately, then head back here. This isn't my first time, AJ, and this is quite easy. The easy ones can turn tricky. I'd be out here if you need me. Just whistle. I grabbed the camera from him and headed to the door. Once I stepped outside, I looked around to ensure I was alone and approached Suite 7. I took a deep breath, opened the door with the master key, and stepped in. My Samsung phone vibrated. An unknown caller was calling. I picked up and heard a whisper. Is it done? Yes, it is. And? The voice continued. The pictures I captured can ensure you take him to all types of cleaners available. Good. I just credited you your balance. How do I get the images? Send me your email address. As soon as I get my alert, you get yours. As soon as I dropped the call, the alert dropped. I was just credited 2 million naira, and in addition to the 3 million I received earlier, it totaled 5 million naira for a day's job. If I continued this way, in no time, I'd be parking my own Embra Legacy 500 next to Madam E's Gulfstream. Who said life isn't good? As usual, after the completion of a job, AJ and I go clubbing. Tonight was a success and I was in a party mood. As I was changing into my party gear, a call came in. I picked on the second ring. Good evening, a friend of mine gave me this number, and she said you can help me do something discreetly. Please can you? Back-to-back jobs? My village people were on public holiday. I reduced my voice to sound deep and tough. Yes, I can. Who am I speaking with? Mrs. Ade Coker. I paused. The name sounded familiar. I brought out my iPhone and a quick Google search revealed who she was, Senator Coker's wife. Okay. My partner will call you tomorrow to set up a meeting. I hope we can reach you on this number. Yes, you can. Thank you very much. Thank you too, and have a good night. I lowered the phone from my ear and made to cut it, but I kept hearing hello, and put the phone back at my ear. Hello, were you saying something? I asked. Yes, she replied, you forgot to tell me your name. Well, I didn't forget, you didn't ask. I'm Maria. Maria, she repeated. Yes, Black Maria. I cut the call. It was party time. Black Maria. Chapter 2. On my way to celebrate the success of the last mission, some thoughts went through my mind. I knew I was supposed to feel guilty, but each time I tried to, my account balance erased it. Otunbo was a rich man with vices, and someone wanted him to pay. It wasn't my fault that someone chose to come to me. Blackmail was a part of life and I was fortunate to get paid while doing it. My phone vibrated and a quick glance revealed Madam E was calling. Shit, I had forgotten that I was supposed to drop by after the job. I contemplated ignoring the call and going straight to the club, but since it was Madam E, I picked. I assume it went well? She asked, sounding flat as usual. Yes. As smooth as butter. Still dropping by? Yes. Almost there. Okay. I await you. She cut the call, and I asked my driver to turn the car around. I tried to imagine what she wanted to talk about. Madam E was an interesting but mysterious person. She was a mentor in this business and taught me everything I needed to know about the art of blackmail. Standing at approximately 6 feet, she was quite imposing, and her powerful presence made sure she always stood out from the crowd. I still remember the first day I met her. We had met a dinner party 4 years ago, when I was still a desperate girl finding her feet on the cold streets of Abuja. I was an usher at the event, and whilst serving cocktail drinks, she slipped me a note that asked me to meet her in the restroom in 30 minutes. I started at the note for a long time and wondered if she was one of those infamous wealthy Abuja wives that were closeted lesbians or bisexuals on the prowl of young, sexy girls. I knew I was a speck, but I wasn't ready to start whoring myself out yet. After 20 minutes had passed, I decided to go meet her in the restroom. I reasoned that there was nothing to lose, and the most that could happen is me saying no. She came in exactly after 30 minutes from the time she gave me the note, and her eyes lit up as soon as she laid her eyes on me. I cleared my throat and spoke up immediately. Good evening, Ma. Thanks for your interest in me, but I don't do women. She smiled a bit and shook her head. She asked me to check the toilet stalls to ensure it was empty, and I did as she asked. As soon as I was done, She asked me to come closer, which I did. I looked at her closely, estimating she was about 45 years of age. It became a full staring contest until she lowered her eyes to her Serpenti Bulgari wristwatch, breaking the eye connection. Then she spoke up for the first time since we had met. "I'm interested in you, young girl, but not that way, my darling." She smiled again and came much closer. "I noticed you back there in the room. The way your eyes scouted the room seemed like you were searching for someone, something." "I wasn't looking for anyone, oh. Just doing my job, Ma." "I know you were. Forgive my intrusion. How much will you earn at the end of this night?" She was beginning to irritate me. What was her concern with how much I was going to earn? I know she looked rich, but right now, she was acting obnoxious. I made up my mind not to answer her, but she smiled and brought out a bundle of 1,000 naira notes from a clutch purse she had in her hand. 20,000 naira, I replied immediately. "Okay, here's 100,000 naira, she said, extending the bundle to me. I collected it and she continued. "I want to ask something of you. If you say no, you can leave with that bundle, but if you say yes, there's more where that came from." My eyes lit up at that statement. Since I moved to Abuja, the most I had made in 3 months was 80,000 naira, but in this restroom, someone was offering me 100,000 naira for saying no with the promise of more if I said yes. There was only one answer in my vocabulary, and it wasn't negative. She reached into her purse and brought out a tiny device that didn't look familiar. Then she pressed her phone and showed me a picture of a man. "This man on my phone is in this party. I want you to go back to that room, look for him, and slip this into his agbada. Once you do that, go outside and look for a BMW X5. I'll be waiting for you in it." I sighed with relief. I had thought she was going to ask me to have a one-night stand with her. She gave me the device and smiled. "I should just put it in his agbada, right?" "Yes, darling, that's all. I'll be waiting outside." She exited the restroom, and I left 20 seconds after her. I went into the kitchen, filled my tray with glasses of champagne, and set back to the party room. The room was poorly lit, but I could still see through the party lights. I started scouting for the picture from the phone, and as if my stars were aligned, I saw the man 10 minutes after. I carried my tray to where he stood, and he reached for a glass. Simultaneously, I bent towards him and slid the device into his agbada. I exited the venue, in search of the BMW X5, and my helper. As soon as I saw the car, I smiled, and the rest, they say, is history. She's in the Madam E's mansion never failed to take my breath away each time I saw it. I was sure that the cost of the ivory twin gates would buy my current house twice over. The giant fountain just beside the gates released sparkling water, and she once told me she had the water imported from Paris. I approached the front door through the stone path, and stabbed the doorbell. After a few seconds, her butler opened the door and welcomed me in. I said thanks and walked to the elevator that'd take me up to the penthouse. On my way to the elevator, Elle realized she had just changed the sitting room furniture. This 14-bedroom mansion was intimidating to say the least. The elevator arrived at the penthouse floor, and I got off. The penthouse was the safest place in the mansion, and it was where Madam E worked from. All the money she made from providing receipts for blackmail was put to good use, and she tripled it in no time. Now she was one of the richest women in Africa, and her grass to grace story was selling like pure water. She looked up as soon as I walked in. Took you a while to get here, Maria. Her voice was flat again. Yeah, was on my way to celebrate when you called. What's up? You sounded serious over the phone. She stood up, walked to the edge of the room, and turned to face me. Maria, I think you should take a break. I looked at her in disbelief. A break? Yes, darling, a break. I hated when she called me darling. It seemed condescending and reminded me of when I was still a hustler in the early days. I wanted to protest, but I realized she looked serious. Why, I asked instead. These are dangerous times. My contact at the National Intelligence Agency hinted me some days back that they'd been gathering intelligence on some persons of interest in Abuja, and I think we should all lay low. Especially you. Are you saying that we have a Nigerian equivalent of FBI and it works? I'm saying that now is the wrong time to come up on any radar. You've made quite a lot of money. Take a vacation, let things calm down. You sound scared. This is Nigeria, not the United States. Don't tell me you're scared of some overworked and underpaid intelligence agents. Maria, I need you to hear me now. She sounded pissed and her otherwise flat tone picked a few decibels. I'm not asking you to retire. I'm telling you to be careful, so you don't get caught or killed. A dead man is dead, and your riches won't serve you well in prison. Okay. I hear you. But what do I do now, since I can't work? My private jet is fueled. Go to Amsterdam or Marrakesh. Do anything you want, just do it under the radar. That's fine. I'll lay low. Thanks for watching out for me. I all but stormed out of the penthouse. I was angry and couldn't believe Madame E. She was supposed to be powerful and rich, but here she was running scared, because of some agents that I bet had no form of training. She wanted me to stop working. It seemed like she had forgotten that this job required a fierce reputation. What would potential clients do if word got out that I was on a break? There was already a job from Mrs. Ade Coker pending, and there was no way I was letting go of it. I was grateful for Madame E alerting me, but I couldn't just stop. She was getting old and needed to slow down, but my journey just started, and a break could come when I turned 50. My driver came around as soon as I exited the building. I got in and texted AJ. Party cancelled. Meet me at Barley's in 30 minutes. New job alert. As soon as the message delivered, I looked up to the brightly lit sky and sighed. Madame E could stop, but Black Maria was just starting. Chapter 3. Barley's was an upscale lounge with an air of sophistication, located at the heart of Abuja. It was designed for classy people in need of classy ambience that kept out random people. It also had one of the most unique views, and coupled with an innovative cocktail menu, and an insanely hot mixologist, it was easy to see why it was my favorite hangout spot. I got there in 35 minutes and looked at our usual sitting spot. AJ was already seated, waiting. Sipping mojito while pressing his phone, he looked like something carved out of a magazine. His halfway buttoned shirt revealed his barrel chest, and his ripped jeans exposed his beefy thighs. Standing at 6 inches and 4 feet, AJ exuded sexuality that he wasn't even aware of, and if he hadn't just proposed to his girlfriend of 6 years, I might have been tempted to feast on him. This was not the time to lust over my insanely hot partner, and I shook my head to clear it of those naughty thoughts. He got up as soon as I approached the table and pulled out my chair. What a gentleman he was. I signaled the waiter and didn't start the conversation until I had been served my favorite cocktail, pina colada. Babe, what's happening? I'm surprised you're still talking about another job. I got a call from Madam E. Shit. Madam E had called him too. This was bad. If there's one person AJ would never disobey, it was her. Although he hadn't told me the story yet, he claimed he owed her his life. It was going to be difficult to convince to continue working, but I had to try. AJ, don't you think she is being dramatic? No, I don't. Madam E taught us everything we know about this business. So if she says we need to stop, we should stop. You sound as if we work for her, AJ. We don't. Are you kidding me, Em? We don't work for her, but we make use of her assets. And you're making it sound like it's a permanent stuff. It's just for the meantime. He didn't look so attractive now that he sounded so scared. What was wrong with him? Did they think the world was going to wait for us while we hid and things blew over? For God's sake, we were talking about intelligence agents in Nigeria. If there were ever two things that didn't go together, it would be intelligence and Nigeria in the same sentence. I decided to try again. Okay, AJ, what do we do about this Mrs. Ade that I've set up a meeting with? Call her and cancel. I'm sure she can wait, and if she can't, she can get someone else to do it for her. Can't you see my point, AJ? I was beginning to sound frustrated and desperate. We may be important, but we are also replaceable. If we lose the clients, we also lose our reputation, and if we lose the reputation, we lose the money. Relax, darling, you're being dramatic. Our reputation won't help if we end up in prison, or worse, dead. So you're going to really take a break? I'm already on break, Maria, and I've got to go. Chioma is waiting for me at home. You should also go home too. He took a long sip from his cup, slapped a few bills on the table, came around and squeezed my shoulder before walking out the exit door. Chioma was his newly engaged fiancée, and it hurt me to see he was leaving work to go spend time with her. Anyways, it was fine. I could handle business without them both. I ordered another glass of drink, and whilst I waited, I thought of what to do. I couldn't count on AJ and Madam E's resources, so I had to make do. I brought out my phone and sent a text to Mrs. Ade. Barley's Lounge, 6 p.m. I looked up from my phone and saw the waiter approaching with my second glass of drink. I switched off my phone as soon as he arrived. Can you get me some shots of tequila? Okay, Ma, the waiter said, smiling. How many, Ma? Just keep it coming. After the third shot, I started to feel tipsy. Common sense dictated I went home, but I felt the night was still young. There was no need going home to an empty house, and even emptier bed. This was part of the reason I didn't want to take a break. Work was the only thing going for me. I hadn't seen my mom since I moved to Abuja, and my love life was non-existent. Without these missions, I felt lonely, and it wasn't a good feeling. But in order not to be the stubborn fly that followed the corpse to the grave, I decided that Mrs. Ade would be my last job. After her, I'd take the break till Madam E decided it was safe to work again. My meeting with Mrs. Ade at Barley's was slated for 6 p.m., but I got there an hour ahead of her. Normally, it would be AJ taking this meeting, but since he decided Madam E controlled his balls, there was no option but for me to step up. The task ahead wasn't going to be easy. I should have gotten a dossier on Mrs. Ade by now, but since everyone was on a break, I did a little digging myself and got some information on her. It wasn't the premium stuff Madam E's guys would have gotten, but it would suffice for now. I chose a table close to the door, and whilst I waited, I ordered a glass of wine. I had just started sipping the wine when the door opened, signaling the arrival of Mrs. Ade. I waved a little and her face lit up as soon as she saw me. She didn't look like one of those typical revenge seekers or troublemakers. If I wasn't expecting her, I'd have thought she was at Barley's for the good food. A small, pretty woman with a nice smile, she didn't look like someone that would want much. She pulled out the chair and settled in. I waved to the waiter to come get her order, and she requested for a bottle of water. I waited for the water to come and brought out my writing pad after she took a sip from the glass. So welcome, I'm Maria. What can I do for you? Thank you, Maria. My friend said you can get anything done. Is that true? Well, technically not anything, but this was the reputation I worked so hard for that they wanted me to take a break from. Yes. What do you want? She opened her bag and brought out her bag. She dipped her hand in it, and after a few seconds, she brought out a picture and slid it to me. I picked up the picture and stared at it for a bit. A young man, dressed corporately, in about his early 30s, and about 6 feet tall was in it. Okay. What about the picture? That's my son, and I want you to kidnap and hold him hostage for 3 days. Black Maria. Chapter 4. Wikipedia describes kidnapping as the unlawful transportation, asportation, and confinement of a person against their will. It was also called a composite crime, and in Nigeria, it was punishable by death or life imprisonment. And if I wasn't mistaken, this woman was asking me to do just that. Did you just say kidnap? I inquired, leaning forward slightly. Don't look at it that way. Just imagine I want you to babysit my son for a handsome reward. Did your friend tell you what I do? Yes. She said you could get anything done for the right amount. Was she wrong? No, she wasn't, but kidnapping a grown man wasn't part of my job description, and now that I didn't have Madam E's resources, it was bound to be a Herculean task. The right thing to do was to turn her down, and walk out of Barley's immediately, but if she was willing to pay the right amount, the best thing would be to at least hear her out. How much are you offering? How does $50,000 up front and $5,000 for each day you keep him look? Blood of my ancestors. This woman was insane. That was the only explanation for the amount of money she was offering. I did some mental calculations quickly, and if all went well, more than 20 million naira would be in my account. Not even Madam E in her prime could boast of such feat. I would be crazy to turn this job down. I decided to play hardball to see if she would bite. Not bad. But I'm thinking $70,000 up front, and $10,000 for each day I keep him would be fair. She dropped her phone and looked up at me. It was obvious she wasn't expecting a negotiation. $100,000? This isn't a lightweight job. She kept staring at me, and I held the eye contest. If she was asking me to risk my life and freedom, then it was a fair price. Okay. She finally broke the staring contest and sighed, 50 now, 50 on completion. It was safe to say I had won this round. I nodded and she brought out a flash drive from her handbag. She slid it across to me saying, "Everything you need to know about my son is there. I expect him taken by Tuesday. Can you deliver?" I took the flash driver and nodded. Today was Friday, and that left me with 3 days. It was difficult, but it wasn't impossible. I was getting $100,000. If she wanted the moon, I would deliver it on a platter. On the way home, it began to dawn on me that this was the biggest job of my career, and my life and reputation depended on it. I wondered if I was way in over my head. Madam E's caution to go under the radar flashed back to me, and I debated calling the client to return the money nestled in the trunk of my car. While my mind was battling my conscience, I remembered the words of affirmation I had recited this morning. I can do all things, through Christ that strengthens me, and smiled. I said it over and over again, and suddenly I felt strengthened. The next day, I plugged the flash drive in the USB port, and got to work. The person I was supposed to babysit for 3 days, Akin Ane, was a 30-year-old male that looked like he had been created on the day God rested. He looked about 2 inches above 6 feet, and a shirtless picture of him meant that he spent a better part of his day in the gym. The more I scrolled through the dossier on him, the more impossible my task seemed. How was I going to babysit someone that could break me in half without AJ and Madam E's resources? I typed the name provided in the dossier in the Google search bar, and the results showed that outside the gym, he was quite the rock star. From pictures of him with models and actress, to pictures of him in exotic places with exotic animals. I clicked on one of the pages that had some useful information on him, and copied some things down. I shut down my laptop and laid down on my bed. It was time to think of a plan. I had been on my bed for more than 2 hours, and had come with nothing on the best way to successfully kidnap the dude. There was a saying that desperate times called for desperate measures, and it was time to apply extreme methods. I decided to call AJ and appeal to every part of his conscience. He picked immediately. "Hey Em, how are you doing?" "I'm not so good, AJ, I need you." "You're supposed to be taking a break, Em. What do you need me for?" I contemplated telling him about the job, but if I was unsuccessful in convincing him to join me, chances were he would report me to Madam E. So I decided to change tactics. "AJ, there's this guy I met, and I really like him. Since you're a guy, what's the best way to kidnap his heart?" "Mimi the schemer," he said whilst laughing. "Stop laughing and telling me, Jor." "Well, you have the brains already, just spice it up with your body, and I'm sure you'd convert the Pope to your husband." We both laughed, and after convincing him I was indeed on a break, we said our goodbyes, and I cut the call. AJ had given me the opening I needed. I switched on my laptop and started writing my plan out. The plan was simple, and I expected it to yield the expected results if executed properly. The first thing was to get a place that would serve as the holding place. There was no way I was going to turn my house into a kidnapper's den, so I called up an agent and asked for a 3 to 5 bedroom apartment somewhere on the outskirts of the city. He promised to deliver in an hour. The second most important thing was manpower. Since AJ wasn't available, I needed about 3 guys that would provide the necessary manpower and security that'd be required. I had a cousin that worked as a bouncer in a club that was desperate for some solid work, and I called him up. A meeting was scheduled for later tonight. Third on the list was essentials and grocery shopping for the apartment. I called my driver, gave him a list, and told him to call me for a drop-off location after procurement of the items. The agent called me 2 hours later and said the house was available for me to check out, and I picked an Uber to the address he sent. The house was a fully furnished, fully detached 4-bedroom apartment with a boys' quarter and garage. It was perfect, and I told the agent I wanted the space immediately. I transferred the money to him and collected the receipts. I sent the address to both my cousin and driver, and went over other plans as I waited for them to come. My driver arrived first, and I granted him access into the house. He seemed surprised, but I assured him it was temporary, and he didn't have to worry. I then dismissed him and told him not to report to work unless I called him. My cousin arrived next. I told him my plans, but I left the kidnap part out of it. He said he had no problem doing what was required as long as the pay was good. I told him I would pay each of them 1,000,000 naira at the completion of the job. He fell on the floor, grabbing my knees in gratitude. He swore to secrecy and promised to keep his mouth shut. The logistics part of my plan was complete. The remaining part was how to get Akin into my apartment. The idea was to get him to come involuntarily, then prevent his departure. I had come up with what I thought was the best way. All that was left was execution before the deadline.